based on what the listeners wanted here, we are going to be separating the college basketball and the college football segments. So we go from our handicapping the hardwood segment to our college football first look, which since we're doing this on Wednesday here, it's actually our college football second look. Maybe you can call it third look after talking about it with Brian Leonard in the first part of today's show. But look, man, it's week 12. It's that time of the year where there's a lot of pressure on a lot of teams. There's a lot of teams that are playing with no pressure, just playing to have fun. I think this can be a little bit of a dangerous time of the year, even though we know a lot about most of these teams.
Yeah, this is the time of the year where I start wondering about teams who have a really poor record, if they're going to keep giving effort, something we've talked about before. I'd be careful with those underdogs now. I don't like laying big points in college football, but I know that in non-conference games late in the year, laying the points has been a good move. So I would say that, this is something to look for in spots here going forward. Which teams are going to continue to play hard? We found some teams who are clearly still playing very hard for their coach. Actually, we talked about Tulsa last week, I believe. Tulsa comes out and wins that game. I was surprised. I haven't had a very good last week in my plays. I wasn't against Tulsa in that game, but was surprised they won it. Now, if you do look at it, and I don't know if you've said this one already or not in your other segments, but UCF should have won that game. That was a very misleading box score. So Tulsa, good win. How much should we take out of that? I'm not sure. East Carolina, a team that continues to fight really hard. I think it's team dependent, coach dependent. Some of these guys clearly don't like their coaches. They know that coach is likely not going to be there next year. You don't want to bet on those teams this time of the year.
No, and I'll tell you what, it's funny because after I got done watching whatever the shit show was at the end of the South Carolina game, I mean, I don't know how many people watched the end of that, but it was a debacle all the way around. It was bad from both sides. It was a complete mess. I don't know how you lose Brian Edwards on fourth down there if you're App State. I don't know how you miss him if you're Ryan Helinski. The holding call was there anyway. It was a total disaster. But I said to somebody, I was like, look, when you're South Carolina, either fire Muschamp and hire Eli Drinkwitz right now, or go and get Mike Houston from East Carolina, because that dude is not going to be there long. I mean, I know that they're not playing well on defense. They don't have enough talent on defense. That offense is humming right along, though. And Mike Houston's going to find a Power 5 job real quick.
Definitely. I think that, South Carolina in that game, honestly, South Carolina looked really poor throughout that game overall. And I did see the end of that game. You're kind of sitting there at the end of the game thinking, I'm not sure who deserves to win this game. I mean, this is App State outplayed South Carolina for a decent amount of the game, but had some major breakdowns late in the game, and it still ended up working for him. But yeah, I agree with you. South Carolina is a bit of a tough team to figure out. And honestly, I wouldn't really want to back South Carolina here the rest of the year.
No, definitely not. Because, I mean, now they're not making it to a bowl game. They could beat Texas A&M on the road this week. It could happen. They sure as hell are not beating Clemson in that final game. So South Carolina's not going bowling. And, they had that very difficult schedule coming into the season. And not to spend too much time on the Gamecocks, but there are a lot of teams at sort of this, fork in the road where do they want to go to some garbage bowl game, in some city they don't really want to go to, or do they just want to be done? Do they want 15 practices in a bowl game? Or do they just want to call things quits for the season? You start the year with, a certain level of expectations. If you're not going to meet them, what does it matter to you? Does it mean anything to you? There are teams that fall into that boat. We'll be able to talk about them over the next couple of weeks here, because that's where, we really see that element kind of come into play. But that's the thing. I was kind of looking at my power ratings this week and going, I mean, they're there, and I can grab numbers, and there are some overlays that I have, but I don't know if all these teams are going to show up. I don't know if they're going to want to be there.
Yeah. It's difficult this time of the year to play at as large of a volume, especially from a side standpoint, because it's hard to know what to think. You get to this time of the year, there are quite a few games you just kind of want to be like, yeah, I don't want to bet that game. I mean, why would you want to bet that game? I guess some listeners might be surprised we're not going to talk about UMass and Northwestern, but that would be one of those games that I'd right away say, gosh, I mean, what? I don't even know if somebody said to you, you get $1 million if you pick the right side here. I don't know what I would do. I mean, do you have any lean in that one? Put you on the spot.
I mean, it has to be Northwestern just because UMass is that bad. But at the same time, for Northwestern, I mean, are they really motivated to let out some frustration against UMass? I mean, they're 1-8. They've scored 38 points in their last 6 games or whatever it is. Like, I mean, they've scored 100 points for the season, and they're a 40-point favorite this week.
Yeah, I mean, it just says what UMass is. I probably would take Northwestern if I was absolutely forced to take a side. I'd be scared, and I would not want to watch that game. I mean, I have watched Northwestern's offense enough this year that it makes you wonder, are they bad enough that UMass will be able to stop it? Probably not. I mean, it's a Big Ten team against UMass, but I didn't mean to hijack the segment there.
No, it's fine. If somebody wants to give me $1 million to pick the right side, at least I got a simple hedge. I'm going to get something out of it.
Yeah. Right. That's what you'd be doing, definitely.
The only way I could bet on UMass is with free money. Like that's it. That's the only way. And it would have to be free money from somebody I don't like.
Right. You'd feel guilty otherwise, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And again, I mean, that's the thing here at this time of the year. You question how motivated teams are to run up scores, how motivated they are to show up. Obviously, if you're in the college football playoff discussion, that's one thing. Like a Clemson, who, not that we're going to talk about this game, and I will talk about it as we go throughout the week here, but I mean, Clemson's laying over 30 against a team that was fraudulently in the top 25 up until, a week or two ago? I mean, that's crazy to me, but that's the time of the year that we're in. So you got to make a lot of difficult decisions here at this time of the year, or you have to make some leaps of faith, just assuming that you've kind of got the right idea about some of these teams. And let's see if we got the right idea here in this game. Game 357, 358, Navy and Notre Dame. This one's down from 10 to 9. I believe it was as low as 8.5 before coming back up a little bit. Fighting Irish defending the triple option here. What do you think?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about this game for a couple of reasons. First, I try to take opportunities here on the show to point out where I've been wrong. Everybody likes to talk about in this industry, beat their chest and talk about how good they are. That's not the way I am to start with. And, I like to be totally honest and transparent about it. Let me tell you, probably my worst bet of the year was Duke last weekend against Notre Dame. I mean, just a terrible performance from Duke in that game. I still am a little bit surprised. You thought as big of a game as that was for Duke that they would show up. I'm surprised Notre Dame was so into that game. I didn't think they'd be so motivated. I will say, it's one of the things I don't really love doing too often, going against the same team 2 weeks in a row when I just lost against them the last week. But I would like Navy in this one if we can get 10 again. I think 10 will probably come back here. It looks like this line is heading back up based on where the money's going. So, we'll see if we can get a 10. But it seems to me like Navy is a team that can run the ball on just about anybody. And Notre Dame's run defense has been pretty questionable this year. I mean, if you watch the Michigan game, you saw Michigan just gashing them one after another. And they knew Michigan was going to run, but they just ran it down their throat every time. I think Navy can move the ball here. They're going to play keep away with that possession, obviously. I don't think Notre Dame's a team that I want to lay a lot of points against a quality team. I think Navy is a good enough team that if you're getting 10, I do think 10 will come back here. Pinnacle right now here, Tuesday afternoon, -9.5 at -115. Usually a pretty good leading indicator. I think we'll see 10 again. How long will it be there? I'm not sure. I tend to like Navy in this game. This is not a big power ratings overlay. It's more of a spot where, Navy has given Notre Dame some difficulty in the past. Notre Dame doesn't have as much to play for as what they would have wanted to play for. I would have to lean plus the points here with Navy.
I think that makes sense. And a huge loss, when you talk about defending the option, a huge loss with Julian Okwara going out for Notre Dame. I mean, he's a first-round pick type of guy. Probably, I mean, obviously it's not great that he has a broken bone in his leg, but, it could have been an ACL or something trying to defend this option attack and all the cut blocks and all that type of thing. The thing that you kind of touched on, I think you sort of beat around the bush with a little bit, but I knew what you were talking about here, is that you've got Navy playing ball control. They've done it to pretty much everybody they've played this year. I don't think Notre Dame's offense is all that efficient. And again, to lay margin against an option team, you've got to maximize your limited number of possessions. And I don't know if Notre Dame can do that here against Navy. They're not going to get a lot of them. Maybe, 6 or 7 possessions, something like that, possibly 8 at the most, if they're able to get stops and get off the field. To cover double digits in that type of setting, it's Navy or nothing for me, too. I agree.
Yeah, maybe 7 possessions or something like that. And then this is one of those games where, if Navy jumps out to a 7-0 lead or something like that, and you got plus 10, that 7-0 lead feels a lot bigger than that with a team like Navy, because Navy is going to do the best they can to keep the ball away from Notre Dame. And like you said, I don't think that Notre Dame's that efficient on offense. Still don't really trust Adam Burke either. I know he's had some good games, but not a great quarterback. I think that Notre Dame's a good team, not a great team. I think Navy will be up for this game. Look at how much time Navy has to get ready for this game. So you would think Navy would be well prepared.
And it certainly should be. There's no excuse for them not to be prepared, and the service academies are almost always prepared. So, hey, if Notre Dame's not prepared, and that's certainly a possibility against this option attack. Looks like a spot where Navy probably pretty live, not just to cover the number, but I'm not going to be stunned if they win outright. I really, really wouldn't be. And again, that's the thing here at this time of the year, too. You may get some favorites, and if they don't show up and they're playing quality competition, you're maybe not just talking about covering the spread. You may be talking about the outright, too. So it's a good time of year to sprinkle money lines, I think, as well.
Yeah, I do, too. I think that this would be the type of game that if you like the underdog, obviously you probably want to put the majority of your bet on the ATS, but take a chance with the money line as well.
Yeah, a little 85-15, something like that. Right. I think that's not a bad idea at all. One more game to tackle here, pardon the pun, as we talk some Week 12 college football. Game 387-388, high noon kickoff in Ann Arbor, Michigan State and Michigan. Wolverines a 13.5-point favorite here in this one. There were some 14s and some 14.5s early on in the week. Most of those at this point are gone.
Yeah, I have to tell you, this is one where this one surprised me quite a bit. You and I were actually kind of texting back and forth the other day. I didn't get to pay as much attention to football this past Saturday as I wanted to, based on, just some family health issues going on and trying to help take care of the kids, and, myself not doing too great either. But I will tell you that I was kind of following earlier in the game when Michigan State was winning, 28-3 or something against Illinois. And then they end up losing that game. And I didn't see how they lost. I just went back afterwards and saw that they did lose. I was pretty stunned. This is a Illinois team that really has negative regression all over its profile. Michigan State, a great chance to finally bounce back. You could say, well, what were they looking ahead? Why would they look ahead to this game? They hadn't been able to win. I think that Michigan State is the team I have a ton of questions about right now. Seems like D'Antonio has kind of lost that program a little bit to me. And I know that's a strong statement. D'Antonio is a good coach, but something's wrong with Michigan State right now. There's no way I could take Michigan State plus the points. I know that, it feels like they should pull one of these upsets one of these times. And, as an Ohio State fan, I kind of hate to say it, but, in a game like this, I have to like Michigan. Obviously I don't like Michigan, but from a betting standpoint, yeah, I think Michigan has a good chance to run up the score again, kind of like they did against Notre Dame. Michigan State's defense, pretty good, not as good as we thought they'd be. Michigan State's offense, look, we know how bad Michigan State's offense is. So I'm kind of curious to get your thoughts on this one, but there's no way I could bet Michigan State.
Yeah, and I was actually reading a little bit this afternoon. Brian Lewerke, so the concussion spotters kind of saw something in that game, and, they were sort of evaluating him, and he said, I felt fine. And so it seems like there's even a little bit of a disconnect, within the program with some of the game day operations and stuff that's going on. And obviously the spotters are going to err on the side of caution every time, as they should. But, there does seem to be this massive disconnect here with Michigan State. And the funny thing is, they'll probably lose this game. Their last chance at getting a signature win for this year, we assumed it was a difficult schedule anyway, going to Columbus, to Madison, and to Ann Arbor. They're going to make a bowl game at 6-6 because they're not losing at Rutgers. No matter how bad they play. And I don't see them losing to Maryland on November 30th either. They're going to be a 6-6 bowl team with 5 losses in a row in conference play. and I'm going to have exactly zero idea what to do with them in whatever bowl game they're in. Because they're I mean, the offense is terrible, but D'Antonio's a good head coach unless he has lost the program, which could be a thing. But what a strange year for Michigan State, especially some of the games early on in the year that, I mean, they should have beaten Arizona State. They didn't. They got that win over Indiana. Indiana's ranked for the first time in 25 years. And that's one of Michigan State's wins. It's a strange year in East Lansing, to say the least.
Well, I mean, don't you think it's time for Michigan State to try a different kind of offense? Everybody else is kind of adjusting and saying, we have to pass it a little bit more. We have to use the spread more often. Michigan State has just stayed very predictable on offense. I know that they're in the shotgun a decent amount of the time. They're very predictable offense, and I think that's proven itself in the numbers. And I know some people say, just take Brian Lewerke out. He's no good. And Lewerke has not been good. I'm not trying to defend Lewerke, but the guys behind him aren't any good either. So, I mean, it's not like they have somebody else good to just put out there. Michigan State has some serious offensive problems. This is a team that I would not want to back. I don't even think I'd want to bet them in a bowl game. I mean, maybe he's going to prove me wrong and they'll pull one of these big upsets. He's done it before. It's just that, I don't think we can count on it with this team.
Well, and this is a discussion for another day, but I was having a conversation with a buddy of mine over the weekend, and we were talking about Michigan State. We were talking about the collapse. We were talking about Iowa. We were talking about Northwestern. Some of these dinosaurs in the Big Ten here, some of these dinosaur head coaches, it just feels like the game has passed them by. And Iowa's not having a bad year. I mean, they are 6-3. They're not having a bad year, but they're a fumbled muff punt away from probably losing to Iowa State. They only had 3 points against Michigan. Probably should have beaten Penn State. You could make that case. Wisconsin last week, that game was right there for the taking. But, some of these guys entrenched at their jobs in the Big Ten, the game has passed them by. They can't compete with Ohio State. They can't compete really with Penn State. Now Minnesota's passed them by. Wisconsin's lucky that the old style of football still works for them, because their recruiting pipeline is still fairly rich. But the Big Ten is really becoming the haves and have-nots. And I think the gap only grows as we go forward here, unless some changes are made with teams like Michigan State and especially Northwestern.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that there are some teams who have been a lot more innovative than others, and we're seeing the split is getting more drastic, like you said. I think that we're going to see more in the next 2 or 3 years where some of those guys are going to have to realize, okay, either, I have to change the way that I coach, or I have to have a coach that helps me offensively, or, it doesn't really fit well anymore. You can't just do that. Sure, you can do that some of the time, but that can't be your only plan of attack.
Well, I know we said we were going to keep it a little bit short, but when you and I get on a roll, it just kind of happens organically here. So good segment. Good to get you on the show here a couple days later. But you know what? Better late than never here with Kyle Hunter of HunterSportsPicks.com. What's going on over at the website right now, brother?
Yeah, I've got some early bird specials up for college basketball, also NBA. I extended those out for another week. So through the 18th of November, I'll have those special prices up. You can check that out at HunterSportsPicks.com. If you haven't already signed up for the free picks newsletter, I would suggest you do that. Only got to send out one this past weekend. I've been on a real nice run on those free pick newsletters. You can sign up there. You also get a free premium pick if you sign up there and register. So good opportunity there to sign up there for free at HunterSportsPicks.com.
Kyle Hunter, HunterSportsPicks.com. Definitely one of the best, one of my best friends. And, of course, one of the best segments here in the business when you're on the show. So, Kyle, appreciate your time as always, man. Thank you so much for joining me. We'll talk to you again next week.
Thank you, man. Talk to you then.